A warm welcome to your Barbados Today Evening News Update for Wednesday, July 29, 2020. There will be some changes to the COVID-19 protocols for travelers to this country. Word of this from Health and Wellness Minister Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Bostic, who told reporters that the changes will be completed by the end of the day. Earlier this week, the Barbados Association of Medical Practitioners urged government to revise some of the protocols, particularly calling for visitors from medium-risk and high-risk countries to be quarantined for 14 days. Minister Bostic says the current 7-day quarantine requirement is in line with the science.
The 7-day period really has to do with the incubation period for the virus, and we capture the person on the third or the second test. That is part of the system. This is a scientific way of doing this that we are adopting. Is nothing unusual, and we have the mechanisms in place to be able to deal with persons who might be missed on the first test, because it depends on when they actually were infected by the virus. So the 7-day period at the moment is what we are working with, but we have the right to extend as we see fit, and that will depend on the second test that the person stayed around day 7.
He also assured Barbadians that the government will continue to ensure that citizens are safe. He also made it clear that citizens and visitors must comply with the COVID-19 protocols, especially the wearing of masks.
The protocols for persons entering this country are quite clear, and those protocols indicate, for example, that masks must be worn at the airport at all times, and that visitors and residents are to comply with the COVID protocols for the country. So whatever the protocol is in this country, everyone's supposed to abide by those protocols. We have recognized, and the SAR would have spoken to this, that there are persons sometimes who do not wear masks in this country when they're supposed to wear masks. We're not saying, and we've never said, for example, that if you're walking on the road and you're alone, that you should be wearing a mask. If you're driving in your vehicle and you're alone, there's no requirement for you to wear a mask. When you're going into public spaces, especially when you're going to be interacting with persons, or persons that are going to be close enough to you, you need to wear a mask.
Meanwhile, the chairman of the University of the West Indies COVID-19 Task Force, Professor Clive Landis, has poured cold water on the suggestion from the Barbados Association of Medical Practitioners that people should be quarantined for 14 days. Landis contends the current protocols in place are adequate.
The protocols in Barbados, I think, are very well considered. So if you come from a high-risk country, so currently we're not open to the US, but the protocols are there. If you come from a high-risk country, you must test negative when you come. You must quarantine, and I use the word advisedly, quarantine, in a designated quarantine facility. And then you must post negative again after 7 days. Now, this is rigorous, and I think it's appropriate for a high-risk traveler coming from a high-risk destination. However, a 14-day quarantine followed by another negative test from a moderate risk country like Canada and the UK, I would not support that. What is currently in the Barbados protocol is that you must come with a negative test, or you get tested at the airport and you have to stay in a designated facility until you are negative, and you are monitored for 7 days, not quarantined, monitored. And I think that's an appropriate response for a traveler coming from a moderate risk destination.
Tourism in Barbados and the Caribbean will bounce back come 2021. That's the view of President of the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association, Patricia Afonso Das, while speaking on the second edition of the Caribbean Economic Forum last evening on the topic Reviving Caribbean Tourism, hosted by the Central Bank of Barbados. While noting lingering challenges in key source markets, she suggested that the product is resilient, but stressed that destinations must be flexible and send clear, consistent messages.
Tourism is exceedingly resilient. I think we have an amazing product. I think we have managed and contained extremely well. We need consistency of message, flexibility in how we deal with our customers, and we need to continue doing those things that have seen us successful up until this point. So I'm looking for a strong 2021 and a positive winter.
Director of Corporate and Government Relations at the Caribbean Council in the United Kingdom, Sue Springer, is also looking forward to a rebound next year. She, however, noted that consumer confidence has fallen, but says it's not all doom and gloom since Britons still love to take vacations.
One of the major fears of clients include the inability to get a test in the UK within the 72 hours of travelling, which is one of the things that most of the Caribbean islands have asked for. And then that the test results are taking anything up to 96 hours to get. Plus the cost of the test is £150 per person. Some of the other things are that they are also concerned that the experience may not be as full as usual, that maybe some of the activities or restaurants may be closed. And there is the concerns about the danger of consumer confidence due to differences in regulations between the UK and the different destinations. However, moving forward, I think we can say that the Caribbean is very much an aspirational destination. And because of what has been done so far, I think moving forward, we will see the Caribbean recovering as and when people can get there and can feel confident. There are a lot of things still to be done. And we talked earlier about technology and so on. And the hotels and representatives most definitely can leverage this.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To regional news now in Guyana, Chairman of the Guyana Elections Commission, former Judge Claudette Singh, is facing 3 private criminal charges. Her attorney-at-law, Sanjeev Dattadin, has dismissed the charges as nothing more than malicious.
This is a malicious prosecution, which is in itself a criminal offense, which is in itself a civil wrong, a tort. This is harassment. This is abuse of process. These charges are utterly ridiculous.
3 citizens filed private criminal charges in the Georgetown Magistrates Court Wednesday, including an election agent of the APNU-AFC coalition, Lorraine Joseph, whose listed address is Melanie Damashana, East Coast, Demerara. Joseph worked on election day as a polling agent for the coalition and signed off on a statement of poll at the South Rupununi Region 9 polling station. The other 2 persons are Keith Odan of Central Amelia's Ward, Linden, and Onita Walcott of Victoria, East Coast, Demerara. The 3 private charges against the GCOM chairwoman amount to misconduct in public office contrary to the common law and states that she performed her duties as chairman of GCOM unlawfully on more than 1 occasion following the March 2, 2020 election. The specifics of the allegations are that between March 14 and June 23, 2020, Singh acted recklessly and unlawfully when she refused to accept the Chief Elections Officer Keith Lowenfield's election report on the March 2, 2020 election. And during an interview with the newsroom Wednesday, Dattadin explained that under Section 140 of the Representation of the People's Act, none of the decisions and deliberations of GCOM is admissible in a court of law except in an election petition.
On the international scene, Google and Facebook took the sharpest jabs for alleged abuse of their market power from Democrats and Republicans on Wednesday in a much-anticipated congressional hearing, with 4 of America's most prominent tech CEOs in the hot seat.
The purpose of today's hearing is
tech titans appeared on Capitol Hill, albeit remotely, to face lawmakers in a much-anticipated hearing on antitrust concerns. Members of both parties at the House Judiciary Subcommittee hearing on Wednesday grilled the 4 CEOs, Apple's Tim Cook, Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg, Alphabet's Sundar Pichai, and Amazon's Jeff Bezos, on everything from market dominance to data surveillance to military contracts to political censorship.
Simply put, they have too much power. This power staves off new forms of competition, creativity, and innovation.
The four men, who together represent about $5 trillion of the U.S. economy, faced accusations of abusing their immense power to maintain dominance.
So my first question, Mr. Pichai, is why does Google steal content from honest businesses?
I disagree with that characterization. Just last week, I met with many small businesses. In fact, today we support 1.4 million small businesses.
Zuckerberg tried to convince Congress that Facebook was not as dominant as it was made out to be and still faced competition.
That's news, but for the very latest, visit our website at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media and bus terminals, as well as Screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. You can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.